everyone. Thanks for coming today. I'm Erica. Yeah. So I started here in August to do tech check, tech and case, a little bit about myself, and then today we'll just kind of go over everything that's required by the Pharmacy Examining Board, the materials we've developed. But if you have questions or comments, ideas, anything, just interrupt me and throw them at me, and I'm happy to hear on what kind of what today's meeting is all about. So, here we go. Okay, so here's the agenda for today. So you can see it's pretty packed. We put it in order of kind of what we want to get done first, and then later. So if we don't come to everything, that's okay. We can always reconnect over a conference call at a later date. But we'll make sure to get in. We have our team here from Concordia today, so that'll definitely get in here today so we can talk about the study that's going on. So Victoria, she's leading the research project, and then Scott is also with us. So he's been working hard with us since January, and we have all developed, but just looking for more feedback. So we can just go around the table quickly, and then on the phone as well. Just kind of introduce ourselves, where we're from, and a fun fact if you want to share. So I can start. I'm Erica, like I said, here since August, working on Tech. I was telling Danielle, I don't know why this came to mind, but my fun fact is I'm not good at computers, but when you put your mind to it, I was leading the world in a tennis game score on this obscure ATP website, so for a day back in high school. So that's my fun fact about myself. That's the only time I've ever got on the leaderboards ever, like captain included. So that's me. You want to go next? Okay, and I'm Victoria, and I'm from Concordia. I'm leading the research study for the Tech, and I don't really have anything fun to say. I do have a 36-year-old horse. I have two horses, and one's 36, and I've had him his entire life. And so I think, to me, that's kind of fun because, you know, horses just don't live that long. I'm Sophia Belker. I'm with PSW for 2 years and counting. And I am the project coordinator for both PSW and WTC, Wisconsin Pharmacy Quality Collaborative. And fun fact is I'm an artist.
My name is Ken Walker. I'm pharmacy supervisor for Shoppo Stores. And my fun fact, actually I got to do something interesting this past weekend. I have a brother who races cars, and he came out to Wisconsin and raced on a dirt track. And so I got to be part of his pit crew.
Yeah,
I was more of a gopher than anything else, but it was fun.
Very fun. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm Brad Given. I'm the supervisor at the St. Luke's Physician's Office Building Pharmacy with Aurora, and I've been to 44 states.
I'm Jesse Zars with EW Health in Madison, Wisconsin. I oversee our outpatient and ambulatory pharmacy services. So a fun fact, I run recreationally, but I'm going to be doing my first 5K this weekend. And I'm hoping that it's not raining like it was this morning, because that would be a disaster.
Are you doing the haunted hustle where they like
jump
out at you?
Oh, my 3-year-old's going to do that half-mile run, and then he's going to jump in the stroller, and I'm going to push him the rest of the way. He's going to wear his costume. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet. But
Very cool. Good morning. I'm Prati Whitehall, and I'm a director for ambulatory pharmacy services with Aurora Healthcare. Yeah, fun fact about, I don't know, I can't think of anything terribly fun, but I went to Alaska this summer and was at Denali National Park and got to see the mountains. Apparently, you go there, you have like a 20% chance of seeing the mountain because it's always so cloudy or foggy, and we actually got to see the mountain.
My name is Nick Capote. I'm a second-year administrative resident at UW Health here in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm part of a group of residents supporting the project, the TCT initiative that's going on. And as far as my fun facts go, a group of my co-residents a couple of weeks ago convinced me for the first time in my life to try Taco Bell. And I never had it again. But I at least was open-minded enough to do it, so I'm proud of myself.
name is Lauren Putterman. I'm a PGY1 community resident with Aurora. I've also had the cool opportunity of working with the other admin residents on putting some of this material together. As far as my fun fact, I think it's pretty cool for my birthday this year. I got to go hang gliding. Like a tandem hang gliding where you're pulled behind a little hopper plane up to like 2,000 feet, and then you just kind of hang glide down. Cool.
My name is Scott Hordeski. I'm also from Concordia. As far as fun facts, I don't know, but I was realizing on the way over here that Monday is my Super Bowl, because a couple of years ago my wife decided it was much better that I eat all my children's candy than they eat their candy. And then my children got old enough to figure this out, so they've now named me the Candy Stealer, which is really fun if you're in the aisle at Walgreens or Shopco and they, candy aisle, and then they say that.
Many of them were watching you.
Yeah, so I was realizing on the way over here that my wife was expecting me to eat a bunch of candy on Monday, and I realized I'm good with that.
My name is Carrie Trafkin. I work here at PSW on the WPQC program, and my fun fact is I am still trying to learn Spanish so that I can keep up with my children who are in an immersion program, and they'll trick me otherwise really soon. So I'm really trying hard.
My name is Hannah Daynard, and I'm the 4th year pharmacy student here from UW-Madison, first day. And my fun fact is when I was younger, I really wanted to be an actress, so I was in a Culver's and a zoo commercial. That was really fun. I don't actually want to be an actress.
Gave that dream up in pharmacy. Well, we're really excited to have everybody here today. My name is Sarah Sorum. I'm Vice President of Professional and Educational Affairs for PSW. I know most of you, and we're pleased to have people join us on the line. We're really excited to have Erica on board to help shepherd this project forward. We really wouldn't be able to put the kind of effort into this without some additional staff support, so that's been really helpful. So we're glad to have her on board, and I know all of you will really enjoy working with Erica over the next year. It's really a full circle moment for some of you, and for PSW for sure. Some of you have even been involved with the tech work in inpatient setting dating back many, many years. And we're excited now to think about how we would move tech from an inpatient setting into a community setting. Lauren was on rotation with us as a student pharmacist and putting together the original proposal work that we were thinking about submitting to the Pharmacy Examining Board. We're excited to think about the study and how that will fit in now that we've got full approval from the PEB to move forward. So this is really our kickoff to implementation. We've been talking about this for quite a long time. Some of you have been involved in those discussions for a long time. So thanks for all of your time to date. Thanks for the effort that you're going to put forward in engaging your pharmacists. We want to make sure that this is a win-win for everybody. So we want to hear from you how it's going, how we can help you be successful. Erica's here to make sure that you are able to be successful with your teams and your pharmacies. We also may have some additional opportunities that come from this, so we want to explore what challenges, opportunities you'd like to have us think about. So today is all about an interactive dialogue and bringing everybody up to speed, and then we'll have lots of other touch points with people over the coming weeks. So my fun fact, I have a 4-year-old daughter, and so she's looking forward to Halloween next week. And she has, over the last few years, picked really obscure costumes ever so that she could kind of pick her own costume. So it's only been a couple of years of that. But last year she wanted to be a dolphin, so I had to design a dolphin costume. And this year she wants to be a cheetah mask. So she describes it very clearly. It's yellow with black spots with ears and a long tail and pink and purple mask. So this is what we're coming up with at our house over the next week. And I've always put it off, the design of the costume, because you never know if they're going to change. She's going to change her mind. So this weekend we'll be finalizing the cheetah mask costume.
I'm Danielle. I'm the Director of Public Affairs at PSW, so I handle all the government affairs and lobbying. I will try not to talk through the whole meeting, I'm sorry. And my fun fact, I have met every single person who's been president in my life. Not necessarily while they were president. I met George Bush when I was like, George Bush II, when I was like 2 at a restaurant in Texas, and George Bush I met when I lived in Texas when he was president, and I've met the others, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama as well. So I have not met Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump though, so I have to track down Hillary soon.
Okay, well, we can go around on the phone too, but I also just want to interject here that I just want to welcome a few people. Concordia obviously here. They're working on research, and then we also have the administrative residence team, the Practice Advancement Leadership team. So Nick is the chair of the group, and then there's 4 subgroups of that. So one is just focusing just on community tech, check tech. So we have all the members here on the phone. So the group lead is Dan Shankat, and then it's Javon Oliver, Alyssa Billmeyer, and then Lauren is also helping us out quite a lot here with it. So welcome to that group. And then we were also hoping that the National Association of Chain Drugstores were going to come with us today, but unfortunately, Jason Ostilli is the Director of Pharmacy Affairs, and then Lauren Kirk, he's the Executive Fellow. They both wish they could come, but there are some last-minute scheduling conflicts. So they wanted to relay a message that they're pleased to partner with PSW and all of you to optimize care. NACDS believes that this pilot project is more than studying TCT. NACDS is looking to study the processes of the new practice models that allow pharmacists to reinvest the time saved by providing direct patient care services. NACDS is excited by the partnership and your work's promise to utilize the full potential of a pharmacist's skills to improve patient access to care and healthcare outcomes. I just want to pass that on as well, since they wish they could be here, but they're also part of this group as well. So did anyone on the phone want to introduce themselves?
This is Valerie from Frederick Pharmacy. I'm the tech supervisor for our outpatient pharmacies. And I don't really have much of a fun fact. My son's going as a fox for Halloween, I guess.
This is Dan Shankett, Senior Pharmacy Administration Resident at UW Health. Like Erica mentioned, I'm getting to lead the Community Tech group for that Pharmacy Advancement Leadership team. My fun fact is that I'm a temporary Cubs fan, only because my grandpa has been a member of the diehard Chicago Cubs fan club since 1947. He's got the cardboard wallet card to prove it, and he's happily showing it off to everyone that I'm cheering for the Cubs just for his sake.
Hi, I'm Christian Albano from Concordia. I am a die-hard Cub fan, but sad one as well since we lost last night. I'm with the Concordia team, so I'm one of the researchers with Dr. Bruner and Professor Hordesky, and I'll be helping out with the research analysis towards the end of the study. My fun fact, another fun fact would be that other than being a Cub fan, I'm a beginner guitar player.
Anyone else? Okay. Well,
we have Michelle on the line.
Yeah, I know Michelle was on the line. No, she had stepped away.
You guys hear me?
Oh, yep. There we go.
Oh, sorry. I'm here with my pharmacy student. She'll introduce herself in a moment. I'm Michelle Farrell. I own Basketball Pharmacy. My technicians are super excited to implement this, so thanks to all of you for making this happen. My fun fact is that on Halloween, since I live with a dentist, we give out toothbrushes, and there's nothing seeing little ones look at me like I'm either crazy or they cry or they get super excited. I do also give out chocolate, so we balance everything in our lives. So here's Sam.
Hi, my name's Sam. I'm a 4th year. First day on the rotation as well. My fun fact is I went skydiving a couple of weeks ago, and now I think I might go a couple times every year.
Anyone else? Want to introduce themselves? Okay. Well, we'll go on here. So here's our project timeline. This is tentative, pending whatever you think of what you'd like to adjust to. So I brought this up early just as this is what our plan was to start with gathering feedback today and through the end of October, sending the materials in mid-November to all of you, then doing the training and baseline collection from November through December, and then kicking this off in January. So as we go through the materials today, if something comes up where you think, oh, maybe this day in January would work best, or maybe pushing it towards the end of January, just let me know. It's just something to kind of keep in mind as we go through the materials. So I blocked out lots of dates to visit within the next 3 months here. So I don't plan on being in your hair every one of these days. That would be consuming a lot. So just trying to show, I have flexibility in my schedule to visit if you would like me to come by, or for whatever reason, if you need to call, just I'm also available other days for phone calls too, but I'm happy to visit on any of these days.
Do you need to visit a pharmacy? I mean, I think you visited one of ours, but
yeah.
Is it kind of like a just basic introductions, or is there like what would you hope to accomplish on those?
Yeah, so it's kind of you can get a lot done over a phone call, but it is nice to kind of talk face to face and then see what people are referring to as well. So yeah, I visited both of our locations last week. Okay. And it was just nice to kind of get the mental picture in your head. So I plan on visiting too, yeah, just so we can get kind of open conversations in, and then I can see, or I can say, I saw this at this location and it seems to be working really well for them. You know, would you be open to this, or here's another idea for you? So that's the purpose of today. Okay. So in the future, planning on doing quarterly in-person meetings like the one today. Just to do more of these open discussions, to get ideas out there, share. On top of that, bi-weekly phone calls. So as you all know, we modeled this after Iowa, and they found that these bi-weekly phone calls really were helpful in discussing kind of challenges or tips. So we'll do 2 phone calls. There will be one with pharmacists and one with technicians. So we'll start those in December when we keep going with the trainings and the baseline collection. And the times will be just determined on what works best for everyone's availability. So we'll distribute a survey through email.
And I guess, you know, Erica's mentioned that this is really open to your feedback too. So if you're seeing something on here that you think you're questioning the value of it, or time frame may be too extensive or not supportive enough, we're interested in hearing from you about that. As Erica mentioned, we're building this off of the support that the staff member at the Iowa Pharmacy Association provided. There's also going to be sort of some phases of implementation that you all are going to be going through at probably a little differing rates over the next several months. So Erica and I know that there's going to need to be some flexibility built in there about, you know, you're not ready this week, but next week you need some support or whatnot. So I think this next few months will be just sorting through getting up and running and really supporting you with implementation. And then what we heard from the Iowa Pharmacy Association is that really after the implementation phase, it's really more about supporting your staff retooling their workflow and leveraging the pharmacist time then to do other patient care services. So it's really a different type of support that will be needed at that point versus the implementation time frame. So we're here to support you.
So the call you're talking about, you'll be sending that meeting notice or call notice out to the person identified as the contact for each pharmacy?
Yeah, so I'll do that. I'll collect it through surveys. So if you all want to send me a name of somebody you think should be included on the phone call, I'm happy to include them on that survey. And I'll try to find maybe if we don't find a lot of times that work for one group, that we can maybe do 2 phone calls, you know, alternating weeks or days, whatever works best for everybody's schedule. But anyone's welcome to join that.
So for each pharmacy that's participating, we'll need to have a key contact person. That will be the person that the Pharmacy Examining Board identifies as the pharmacist in charge of the Tech program that's built into how they've structured the pilot. So that individual will have a certain set of responsibilities associated with the pilot. And then some of you are more at the management level, and so there will be definitely some support that you'll need to be aware of and engage in. So I could see, you know, having both management level and location level on a call.
And I just wanted to mention too, research team, we're willing to provide support to anybody as well. And everybody will have access to my phone number and contact as well. So Eric and I, we're going to be working closely together. So,
yeah. All right. So here's kind of a quick overview, if you had to say, how do you get going with Tech Check Tech? So it's kind of a little bit of an outline, and then we'll go into the details further. So the first is just selecting a good fit, a pharmacy that's a good fit. First, they have to be eligible based on what the Pharmacy Examining Board requires. And then what works with the workflow, if it's even possible. Do you have enough technicians on staff? And you know, if you only have one person that works there, that's hard to find another technician to then check your work. So then the second step is then just applying and receiving approval from the Pharmacy Examining Board. We don't have the sheet finalized yet, but the one for the institutional program is just a one sheet. You write the contact information down, and if you're in good standing with the Pharmacy Examining Board, high likely chance you'll be approved. So it shouldn't be too time consuming to apply. You don't have to prepare a proposal or anything like that, and then it's just a one sheet paper. Then the third step would be signing the study consent form. So Victoria's going to go over that later today. Then the fourth step would be determining your workflow adjustments, what makes it possible to do Tech Check Tech, so you can have a technician completing those second checks. 5 would be appointing a supervising pharmacist. So that's that person that's in charge, and the name given to the Pharmacy Examining Board. The person is going to oversee all Tech Check Tech. So we'll go over that, the duties and the responsibilities of that in a little bit. Next up, then find your qualified validated pharmacy technician candidate. So validated pharmacy technician, that's the name of a technician that does the second check. So then they do didactic training, then practical training, and then they go through initial validation. And we'll go through the details of these in a bit, but that's the kind of the process then to become a validated pharmacy technician. And then once all that is done, then you can do Tech Check Tech. But there are some quality assurance measures that are associated with it.
Just keeping the timeline in mind, once we complete the one sheet application form, is that reviewed by the PEB kind of in real time, or do they have to do that at their meeting? It's real time, so they'll get back. I was told that it only takes a couple days unless there's some really crazy schedule or the application or something, then it might take a week. But it should be within a couple days that you hear back.
The process that they have in place is that the Pharmacy Examining Board has sort of delegated the authority to the executive director of the Pharmacy Examining Board, Dan Williams, to approve pilot applications as they come in on a rolling basis. And unless he's out of the office, then he'll be able to sign off on it.
Okay, so first we'll go over the requirements that were set by the Pharmacy Examining Board here. So first step, you have to apply, and this is that one sheet paper I was talking about. We'll provide this all in a packet with a step-by-step process for you, so you don't have to seek this out. It'll come to you. So look for this here in November with all the other materials that we'll be sending.
At the last meeting, the Pharmacy Examining Board approved the pilot, and then they approved our study of the pilot. And then they have to finalize an informational sheet, which we essentially already have given to them, and they have to finalize the form. And that's the material that will appear on the website and be open to anybody. And that has not occurred yet. We've been trying to ask about when that will be completed. The board meets next week, so it's very likely that we'll have that right after that board meeting.
So these are the eligibility requirements that were set by the board. I put it straight on the slide here so you can see word for word what it says. But licensed and located in the state of Wisconsin, so everyone here qualifies. Have a continuous quality improvement program, and then they define what a continuous quality improvement program is. Then willingness to participate in the research studies of Community Tech Check Tech, which are approved by the Pharmacy Examining Board. So that would be participating in our study here. the study was approved by the Pharmacy Examining Board back in September. And then the fourth step is patient consultation, like show and tell will take place. So when we submitted our application or our proposal to the Pharmacy Examining Board, we did not touch patient consultation, but they really wanted to emphasize and reiterate that this is an important step in the process and that Tech does not remove that. So patient consultations will still take place. And we'll go over that later. Next here, the Pharmacy Examining Board also excluded a few medications from being part of the Tech process. So compounded and reconstituted medications are excluded. And that's to give the pharmacist more of a clinical eye over it compared to a technician. And then mailed and delivered prescriptions are also excluded. And that's so then that patient consultation, face-to-face interaction can take place. And kind of gives the pharmacist a last minute, just quick breeze over to make sure everything looks good without doing the detailed checking. And then finally, if a prescription has a technology override in the system somehow, then it would go through the traditional workflow where a pharmacist does the final check. So if you have to change anything in the computer system. So the supervising pharmacist, that's the person who is in charge of Tech at that location. This is a requirement by the Pharmacy Examining Board. So the supervising pharmacist must be licensed in Wisconsin, but it does not have to be the managing pharmacist. The managing pharmacist can be the supervising pharmacist, but that person doesn't have to take on both responsibilities. If you think it's a match, for another pharmacist might be a good match for a supervising pharmacist. So the supervising pharmacist is accountable for all the operations and the outcomes of Tech. That means that they're the ones, in front of the Pharmacy Examining Board. That would be your go-to person if they have some kind of question about it. So final checks completed by the validated pharmacy technicians are considered delegated acts of this person, this pharmacist. And then a responsibility of the supervising pharmacist is submitting any of the forms. That would be the research forms, the reporting data to Concordia, and then also the annual information as well. So we'll go over what that's all required to. It's pretty quick data, it's only a few fields, so not a huge time commitment on this person, but they do also have a responsibility to ensure that the training is done correctly. So that will take a little bit of time as well.
Hey, Eric, I apologize.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Can you jump back a slide on the investigation? So can you elaborate a little bit on technology overrides, what exactly that means?
Yeah, so an easy example I give is, say the NDC changed, and you have to change that in your computer system, then that would go back through the traditional workflow.
Okay, so we're not talking about DURs, we're not talking about...
Yeah, so I'll talk about that in the workflow. So those are still required by a pharmacist. So a technician's not doing any of those.
Correct. So that doesn't kick it back into the regular flow. If, say, electronically, we can do a DUR.
Yeah.
Before it gets them. Okay.
Yep, then it can go through Tech.
I think the technology override component is related to the product verification piece. So if there's any technology override related to product verification, so barcodes not scanning, or as Erica mentioned, NDC changed, or something related to the product verification, that would kick it into the normal workflow.
Would narcotics be excluded as well?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
Would narcotics be excluded as well?
No, they're included in Tech. Yep.
What did you say?
Narcotics, so controlled substances. Yep. So that's goes across the board with that. So we have a policies and procedures document that we're going to send to you all that says here's the basic outline of what's required, and then you can make it more restrictive if you don't want to include certain things, or you want to make it more requirements for your validated pharmacy technician. That's up to your discretion. Okay. Are any questions about either the excluded medications or supervising pharmacists? Okay. So next, the validated pharmacy technicians. As I said, that's the person who will be completing the final check of the product verification. So this does not apply to the filling technician. This just applies to the person who's doing the final check. So here's the requirements that the Pharmacy Examining Board put in place of who is qualified to be a validated pharmacy technician. So they must be 18 years or older, have an employment status of half-time at that site. Then they must have a minimum of 2,000 hours of experience or completion of an accredited technician training program. They must also have 6 months of experience at that pilot pharmacy, and then if they meet all those requirements, then they complete didactic and practical training related to Tech, which we'll go over in more detail in a little bit here. And then once they complete that training, then they must demonstrate their accuracy through the initial validation process, which we'll go over again in a little bit, and then a quality assurance process once they're actually doing Tech.
So if we have a higher volume pharmacy, are you okay to have 2?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, you can have as many validated pharmacy technicians that meet these requirements as you like.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's actually a really good strategy to have more than one, because if you have somebody who's sick or you have non-overlapping shifts, it's valuable to have more than one.
So, going through here, say the person meets these requirements, they did the training, so they do this initial validation process. So the candidate goes through and completes at least 1,000 consecutive final checks over a minimum of 5 days. So every single one of these final checks that they complete then is double checked by a pharmacist for its accuracy. And if that candidate meets 99.8%, meaning they only make 2 or less errors, then they're considered a validated pharmacy technician, and then they can complete Tech as part of the Tech process. It's a lot of information. I want to anyone have questions about that? No? Okay. We can always come back to it too. So we created a log here, and you can see a blown up copy in your packet, bigger than the slide. So this is something that Lauren and the rest of the practice advancement leadership team and I have worked on, is developing a tool that makes it easy to collect this information. So each validated pharmacy technician candidate will have their own spreadsheet, and then it's just a matter of recording it. It'll pre-calculate for you. So the supervising pharmacist is responsible for ensuring the accuracy of this document. So that's why we have included to also hand calculate it and then cross-reference them to make sure that the information matches. But it will be sent to you in an Excel document, so you can do any editing to it. Just to add on top of that, if you don't like this document or you think your computer system can do it for you somehow, that's absolutely fine. The Pharmacy Examining Board does not require how the information is tracked. It's just a matter of it being tracked and recorded and kept for 5 years on record. So you can edit this document and everything. It's just all about making sure the document is accurate and then keeping it for 5 years and having individual logs for each validated pharmacy technician. Any questions about that part? Okay.
We're envisioning what's timeline-wise in an ideal scenario that you're doing training of your validated technicians as well as the validation between now and essentially the end of the year. So it's a pretty compressed time frame. So we're also interested in feedback about that, whether it's now or as you learn a little bit more. But the validation can really begin essentially now. You have some training that they'll need to go through, but there's validation that it can occur between now and the end of the year.
We have to wait until we send in our application, get the approval of the application.
I don't know, do they need to have approved? It's not like they're doing anything that they need a variance for to do validation.
Yeah, so when I spoke with the Pharmacy Examining Board, they said when they approve these that you have all processes in place before actually beginning anything.
But the validation would be,
because the pharmacist is double checking all of the validated ones, you don't need a variance for it.
Yeah.
So yes, no, the answer is you would be able to validate before the application.
So we could start as early as Monday.
You could start
as early as tomorrow.
Yeah.
It sounds like they do the training first. That active practical training before
It's
in the
not,
validation.
yeah, it's not outlined specifically what order you take it in the proposal that was approved by the Pharmacy Examining Board, but that's kind of the way it's set up, but it doesn't mean you have to do it that way.
You can do training
The
plus
training is designed to serve the background for checking. So So the information we're giving is on like medication errors that can happen or different things to look for when you're checking. So it's kind of background.
Yeah,
But
I mean, my thought would be if you want to reach a 99.9% accuracy rate and go through that successfully the first time, you probably want them to go through the training.
Yeah.
So once they pass that initial validation process, then they can do tech check tests as frequently as you'd like, but there is a quality assurance measure associated with it, and this is required by the Pharmacy Examining Board. So every single day that a validated pharmacy technician completes tech check tests, a minimum of 5% of those final checks each day must be audited by a pharmacist for their accuracy. So we come up with kind of the easiest way to do this is if you would just say, we do 200 a day, we've never done more than 200 a day. So if you say, okay, well, 5% of 200 is 10. If I check 11 every single day, regardless of what volume we do that day, I'm always going to meet the 5%. So that's kind of like the quickest way to do it, and then you can do those audits whenever you'd like throughout the day. You don't have to wait till the end of the day to say, well, how many final checks did this person complete? Now, what's 5% of that? Now, let me go back and find, once the audit. It's just, it can be done when you have a chance. So that's the easiest way. We have a way of recording this as well that looks a lot like this log, and I'll show it later. It's a few slides down. But that's the requirement here. And then the accuracy is 99.8%. It matches the initial validation requirement. And it's assessed on a quarterly basis by the supervising pharmacist. So the supervising pharmacist will look at the past year, and if that technician meets 99.8%, then they can just continue on doing tech check tests. All well. If that person does not meet 99.8%, then they just have to go back through the validation process that we just discussed in order to continue tech check tech. They don't have to do the training. If you'd like them to do the training all over again, that's completely fine, but it's not required by the Pharmacy Examining Board. It's just required that they go back through the validation process.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're going to talk about this later, but when we're talking about the errors that are caught, do we have a definition of what is considered an error? Because I know in Iowa they ran into some of the, like, if a monograph is missing, or there's more like administrative errors that aren't like going to cause harm to the patient, or like a product checking error that, like, some of the issues that they had with their error reporting. And so as we're validating technicians, the people that are responsible for checking those errors are probably going to need to know what qualifies as an error. And so I'm just curious if we have descriptions of what that is, or what those are, and like it might require some training of pharmacists that are going to be checking those errors, making sure that they're familiar with that too.
So the Pharmacy Examining Board specifically outlines that wrong drug, wrong dose, wrong dosage form, and then incorrect quantity are the four that they would mention as recording for errors. Okay. Anything outside of that would be what you'd like to include. However, then that does affect their accuracy. I know Safety Cap in Iowa study rolled up their results and made it look like technicians were far less accurate, or that's, maybe something that's not as
What were those four?
Dangerous.
Wrong drug, wrong dosage form.
Wrong drug, wrong dose, wrong dosage form, and then incorrect quantity.
Okay. Then for the validation error log, we have, like, you have other error listed there and omitted medication. Yeah. Like, I think it sounds like what you're saying is the site could determine if you want to be more strict about what an error is, you could include that on here. Yeah. Is it worth pointing out on the sheet, like, the four that are required, and then, like, just having other sections for, like, other or institution specific?
Yeah, we can definitely do that because it makes it. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a really good suggestion, is to have a minimum Excel document and then have like the additional fields.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So moving forward. So here's a simplistic workflow It'll depend on every single site what works best for them, but this is just one example. So what's not included in this outline here is the EURs. That's what to happen by a pharmacist and work into the workflow wherever it makes sense at your site. So then this just kind of shows if a prescription was to come in, it goes through the processing station, it's decided if it's eligible or not based on what's excluded from the pharmacy examining board. And then it can go to the filling station. So one way of maybe denoting this is just doing blue basket, red basket, and then it goes to the checking station, and then it's checked by either the BPT if it's part of TCT, or it can go through by the pharmacist. And then here's an example of if there's technology override, then it would go back, so you put it in the red basket, and a pharmacist would do the final check. So you see they come together at the pickup window, and that's when the consultation can take place, that show and tell step. Any questions about the workflow?
One of the people really easy.
Yeah,
right.
Right. Up there, it's very easy.
Yeah. One of the pieces of feedback that you all provided when we were considering the proposal for the pharmacy examining board was making sure that there was flexibility about where that pharmacist clinical review of the prescription occurred. So while some examples show that occurring more towards the beginning before the prescriptions even enters the workflow, that's not a requirement. So you can have that occur wherever it makes sense within your workflow. And we'll have, opportunities for us to have work group calls and stuff to talk about how workflow is going, what strategies work well at certain sites versus other sites, what computer system capabilities there might be common across sites.
All right. So some just kind of general points to point out about the workflow. So a pharmacist must be physically located in the pharmacy in a way that enables direct patient interaction. Drug utilization review must occur, as we just talked about. Consultation, like show and tell, is also still required by law. Then the staffing will be adequate in order to do tech. Technology will be utilized, if possible, if you have it available to you at your location. And then just, again, to note that the workflows are site-specific.
The biggest concern that I hear when we talk about this project is from people who are less familiar with it than all of you, is that pharmacy locations will use this as a way to cut back on pharmacist staff. And that's really, you all subscribe to the fact that we're really using this to redeploy pharmacist time, but I just wanted to make you aware of that perspective that's out there. So as you can work to educate colleagues about how this is enabling what we believe will enable some additional patient care services, I think that will be valuable to the success of the project beyond the pilot. The Iowa Pharmacy Association did this pilot for a couple of years, and they're now entering the process of writing rules through their Board of Pharmacy to have this be permanent. And their Board of Pharmacy is actually super concerned about how this may impact workforce in a pharmacy. There's a question about whether or not that's really the role of the Board of Pharmacy, but regardless, there's a dialogue that's happening that's pretty passionate. So we want to sort of think ahead a little bit about how, just as we have done in the inpatient setting, use this to redeploy pharmacist time, that we're thinking about it the same way in the community setting.
Well, this is maybe a little more specific than what we're at now, but speaking of workflow, is there any, as shifts change or people go on lunch or whatever, sometimes the checking technician will end up being the filling technician. I'm assuming they're not supposed to check anything that they have filled.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, it has to be a different technician.
Okay.
Yep.
So in your basket example, you might, then anything that they would fill would go in the pharmacist basket automatically.
Right, yeah, unless you had 2 validated pharmacy technicians, which is another thing that we just have to come up with a strategy, I don't know, up with the initials on the script, figure out those type of things.
Probably would have to. I was just trying to think, because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one where you have moving parts and people are in multiple different positions depending on what time it is.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah. Okay. I just want to add this in here as well. We don't anticipate the pilot changing, but the Pharmacy Examining Board does have the ability to modify the parameters of the pilot at any time, and then any participants can remain in the pilot at the discretion of the Pharmacy Examining Board. Don't anticipate any changes, but just wanted to include that. That is an ability that they have as the board. So,
and theoretically, we could also use that to our advantage too. That if there's significant barriers or challenges or suggestions that you all are coming across at your sites, that we can then share that information back to the board and suggest some changes to the pilot, you know, before the study is over. It doesn't have to wait till the end.
So moving on to the training documents here. So we'll go over, so Lauren knows we're working really hard on this to get documents drafted for you. So that's in the second packet here, the draft didactic training module. We won't have time to go over every slide in here today. There's a lot of content. So if you want to review it whenever you have a chance and just send me your feedback, I'd appreciate anything that you'd like to include. But we will go over the learning objectives, the purposes, what's required today here. Going forward, so didactic and practical training are required by the Pharmacy Examining Board, and they set out what is required. So it includes what they specifically outlined is they want to see elements of a package label, medication and pharmacy abbreviations needed to match ordered medication with dispensed medication, common dispensing medication errors and concepts are all things that they'd like to see on the didactic training, and then as well as organizational policies and procedures on reporting medication errors. So that'll be something specific to your site that can be done in practical training, and then an overview of the organization's medication use process, which is procurement, ordering, dispensing, you know, the whole process there, which would also go part into your practical training at your site. So we anticipate with the didactic training we're developing now, I don't know if everyone had a chance to view the video I sent you or not. You want to view it later. That's kind of just a rough draft example of what a training might look like. It's a video, you watch it, and then at the end there'll be learning assessment questions that you take. So that's something we're looking for feedback on as well. There's some draft learning assessment questions in this packet here, the training module packet. So looking for feedback on what you think is an appropriate number of training or learning assessment questions. Right now we have about 3 to 5 drafted per module, but we don't know if that is, you know, really efficient and robust enough questions in order to assess someone's ability when they get a lot of information in many slides and then there's quick back questions. So if you think we need more, we can draft more questions. Just to give you an idea of what it'll look like, so I talked about there's a video. So what you'll do is you'll log in. I can actually show you here. So this is all drafted still, but what it'll be is you log in to our website here, and everyone will create a login. And then I already registered, so it may not be exactly like, but oh, we can take me to the page. Well, okay, I'll talk through it then. It was set up a minute ago. So what you do is you go into our website and you're registering for a meeting, which is what it's called, but you're really just going in and then you select what you want to attend, this tech training. You'll go through and then it'll kind of like WPQC in a way. So you'll click on the module you want to listen to, you'll watch a video on it, and then when you're done with that one, then you click go to learning assessment questions, and then you go to learning assessment questions. And then once you answer those, then it'll print out a certificate for you saying I completed that module. Then you'll be able to track your progress. So that's kind of how it'll look up. We have 7 modules designed, which I'll go into detail in a little bit. And we're anticipating it'll take 2 to 3 hours. The anticipation is based on just how long it takes us to record all this, so we talk a little bit faster or slower. But about 2 to 3 hours on the computer here. And all the didactic training modules will be eligible for ACPE credit for both technicians and pharmacists. I'll clarify that in a minute.
Is there a certain percentage like accuracy that they have to reach? Like, do they have to get 100% to passed, or is it more of just an assessment and it captures that information?
Yeah, so that's something we're definitely looking for feedback from you of what you think are appropriate percentages. Let's, open to any feedback. If you're comfortable with 100, or if you think 80 is comfortable.
If they have to have 99.8%, I think 100% is
100%?
probably reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have, like for journal CE and stuff, or webinars and things like that, it's 70% accuracy to claim credit. But our feeling is that is exactly that. This is definitely a higher level of preparing you to be able to do some really serious work. So we can definitely make it 100%. It's just a setting that we're able to change. The other thing that occurs when you take the learning assessment is you're provided what the correct answer is and the reasoning for that. So it's a teaching moment. And so theoretically then, if you were to get 70% and you don't obtain the checkbox for completing that one, then you would have to go back in and redo that learning assessment. You'd know the answers then at that point. So as long as people are comfortable with that, that's our strategy.
As long as you have that option where they can review and correct and they'll get to 100.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yep.
One strike, you're out.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Well, that's something that we do too, and I don't know how the website will be set up, but after you watch the video, like we have computer-based trainings where you do it, you have to get 100%, but you can't see the answers, but you have the documents available to you at that time. So like you'd have the slide deck where you could go back and review that section, understand why you maybe got it wrong, and then go back and take it, which may be valuable either way if we show them the answer and say, you still have to do it again. They still have the documents there to review as they do the learning assessment.
Yeah, so we have that included. I didn't mention that, but the slide deck will also be possible to print out and you can take notes as you're watching it or reference it later.
But we could do that. I mean, we could set it up so they can't see the answer.
This is providing background. It's education. The accuracy piece is going to be the structure you set in your pharmacy.
Right.
Procedure, the verification. So I think this is important, but I don't want to make the training piece too time-consuming, too difficult.
And also make it such that people can't pass the training to get to even the point of validating.
Yeah.
Well, I think
showing the answers is fine.
Yeah. I also don't know if 100% is. Because I like what you're saying. I mean, it's the validation that's the crux of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, 95, who knows?
There's not going to be a lot of questions, so if there's only 5 questions,
you missed one.
Yeah.
You're an 80 right there.
Yeah. So right for those that use Pharmacist Letter, that's exactly how they have it set up, and so it's easy to use and it makes sense, and you end up knowing all the information when you're done. So if you set it up that way, I think that's valuable and efficient.
Okay. And then the other, maybe the other question I had, Erica said that you'll essentially get a certificate, so your technicians that are going through all the modules will get sort of a notice that they've completed that module. So our thought is that the supervising pharmacist then would be responsible for ensuring that all the modules have been completed. They would know which modules need to be completed, then the technician would provide the evidence that they've completed that. And then that way it puts the ownership on the supervising pharmacist to ensure that that's been done. We can pull reports on who's done what training, but it's a little bit, we've thought through how we could be the ones that would notify that the whole series has been completed, and I'm just not sure that that's the right way to show responsibility of completing it. So we're interested in your feedback too, as to how we could make it more streamlined for you, or if that would work.
So what you described earlier is that if I'm a technician, I can sign in, I'll be able to see my progress. So as a supervising pharmacist, can we set it up so that they would have access to anybody in their location? No.
Not to see the way we have a pretty simplistic sort of learning management system through our database, and so there isn't a way for us to give access to the supervising pharmacist to see that person's course record. It's just not built that way. So the only way for the supervising pharmacist to see would be to have that technician send the evidence of completing that module to the supervising pharmacist.
Which is, that's it for my stores, if that's the only option, right? I can set that up and ensure that happens.
Okay. So as I mentioned, these are the requirements that are set by the Pharmacy Examining Board and what they'd like to see in the training. So the group that we've been working on the educational pieces of this, we've decided to make it add more rather than less, just to kind of extend more detail to what is required by the Pharmacy Examining Board here. So going into that, here's our 7 modules. We try to capture everything in that make up the didactic training portion of this. And I'm going to go into each module, the learning objectives for each one, so at least you get kind of a summary of what it's about. So the first one is thinking about Tech Check Test. This one's intended for anyone to get ACPE credit, and it's just kind of an overview of what is Tech Check Tech. It's, you know, just what does it mean? Why do you want to do it? What's the evidence behind it? So that would be that portion. And module,
correct me if I'm wrong, we're intending that everyone in the store that is doing Tech Check Test will be required to do that module.
Yep, so it'll be open to anyone to take, and then, yeah, pharmacists can get credit from it, and technicians can get credit from it as well. We're going to register it for both with ACPE.
How many credits of each module? Does it vary, or is it?
Yeah, it's going to vary based on how long it is, so there'll be at least for, is it 0.15? Is that how it works out, or is it 0.25?
15 minutes
Yeah.
is the minimum amount of
Yeah.
credit. So were you thinking this was like a 15-minute one?
Yeah, this one will be one of the shorter ones.
0.25.
Yeah, 0.25, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So that's the first one. The second module is a step-by-step guide, which is somewhat of what we're doing today here. It'll be kind of that beginning portion I did. And then this is the video I sent you in the email if you want to view it. It'll probably be re-recorded. I added some pictures to make it a little more fun. So, but that's a rough draft of what you'd like. And if you have comments on that, I'm happy to, you know, adjust that video. So this one, like I said, is just reviewing what we've been going over so far today. And the next is Module 3 dosage form. So this is describing the routes of medication used, common dosage forms, kind of interpreting the prescription orders, and then the abbreviations associated with all this. Module 4 is Advanced Review of Common Medications. This is going to look at the top 100 commonly prescribed medications in the U.S., and then their uses, and then classifying medications by drug class, understanding the auxiliary labels and the requirements, since that varies from site to site. So we just thought include a comprehensive review of all of that. Distinguish between medications that look like and sound alike, and then tall man lettering, and then recognize medications with multiple formulations. Module 5 is that. Was there a question? Okay. Module 5 is calculations review. So this is just matching common abbreviations with the unit of measurement. And then simple conversions between these different measurements and day supply, quantity owed, and then common pharmacy calculations. Module 6 is preventing errors, so classifying common medication errors, describing 2 techniques the pharmacy can use to minimize potential errors, and then recognizing the importance of PQI. And then Module 7 is just kind of bringing it all together, the basics of checking a prescription, so identifying important components of prescription label, describing the various steps to verifying, and then recognizing medications that should be left just in their container. You don't have to repackage it. So those are 7 modules. Anyone have any questions on those?
And if there would be an interest in you requiring any additional training of your VPTs that maybe would be site-specific, you could certainly include that as a requirement for your VPTs or all of your staff. And if it would be helpful for us to enable that to occur, we could certainly do that. wouldn't be challenging for us to facilitate you recording something, or so it's really up to you as to whether or not you want to add any additional training requirements on top of what these modules are.
Pretty sure I know the answer to this, but if we wanted to use any of these modules just to train other technicians who might not be BPTs, but since you've put so much work into it, can we use it for other purposes, other training?
So they'd have to register for it through this meeting. That's the only way it's available at the time. We might make it more broadly available as time goes on, but we want to do this initial with just tech, see how it goes, and you're registering for a specific subgroup, and then we might make it more possible on our website at a later time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think just kind of to dovetail onto broader, like trying to get more technicians certified.
Sure.
I'm sure some of these materials could be broadly used for that purpose.
Yep, I think the same thing. It would be great to have.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not the tech modules, but just the general modules for technician training. I think they're great. Like things that we want technicians to know in general.
So what we might do, I would agree with you. I think we see a lot of application. We might set it up just kind of knowing that that's going to happen probably pretty quickly. What we're trying to do is have some type of a list in our database of who's actually participating in the tech pilot. We might, for those people who you want to use this more general purpose, we might have you go through like a different link to be able to do that, just so we don't have them in the wrong bucket. So we can make sure we have it set up to enable that to happen.
Going back to the beginning, when you had the SW website, there's a fee for this for each person?
Not for the people participating in the study.
Oh, really?
We have it just right now set up just for specific for the people in the study, so that any technician who wants to be part of it can just go through the training. Okay. Yeah, we want to make it successful so that people are able to do tech pretty easily. Okay. So that's certainly one of the benefits of being part of this pilot is, with the support that we have through the grant for us to be able to make this available to your sites at no charge, or no additional charge. So certainly we see value in this that we might, as Erica mentioned, to others that aren't participating in the pilot might sort of sell these. But because your sites are participating, we want to make it available to you all to be able to move through without a charge. You can add that to your return on investment or your engagement in PSW. Yeah, so just to mention again, I have all the slides printed here of what we've drafted so far for the training. If you just want to send me your feedback, I would love to hear it, how we can make these more user-friendly, or what else you think maybe can be included or elaborated on. I'm happy to hear it all.
One question on the pharmacist audit. I'm just a little unclear. So during the validation process, it sounded like you said the pharmacist is checking all of the things they're checking, but then we're also auditing 5%. Like, is that later? I'm unclear on that.
Yep, so it's two separate processes.
Okay.
So there's the first one where you know someone is interested in being a validated pharmacy technician, so then they do the training, and then they, both on the computer, then they do the practical training, then they do this initial validation process, which is checking 1,000 consecutive final checks.
And that one we check all of them?
Yes. Okay. The pharmacist checks all and sees if they meet 99.8% accuracy. They have to be at least 5 days, which I think it would take at least 5 days.
Once they've met that metric, then it's just the 5%.
Yeah. That's just to ensure the quality.
Okay.
As far as those 1,000 checks, we say consecutive checks, but that would be you decide you're only doing validation for 2 hours of the day. It doesn't have to be all the hours every day that you're having that second check happen. Because we understand this is a big wedge in your workflow, and it's not going to be all tech all the time. We'd like it to be as much as possible integrated, but realistically, that's not always the case.
So kind of nitpicking here. So 1,000 scripts, it says 5 consecutive days. But if I'm doing, it takes me 14 days to get to 1,000.
I don't know if it says
It's minimum 5.
Oh, minimum 5. Okay. boss right over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the first time as well. And that's the idea that you don't want to just catch someone on one day. You want to see, on average, are they able to have the same accuracy over time?
Okay. Very good.
Would you recommend, if you have more than one candidate, training them like at the same time, or would you recommend doing one at a time to make it easy for?
Yeah, I mean, that's up to
Or does
you.
it make
Whatever
a
you
difference?
think
Is it just up to us? Okay.
Yeah, it's up to you if you think it makes more sense to train two people at the same time, you can bounce questions, or, yeah, there's no requirement set about having individual training or that it must be one-on-one training or any of that. Is up to you.
When the music stops, they switch.
Yeah.
I'm jumping ahead slightly, just so that this isn't a surprise later. Remember, there's a parallel process going on for pharmacists for their baseline collection. They're not excluded here, but
Yeah.
that's not here now, so we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Too far ahead.
Yep.
But there's, when you're figuring, well, this one or music stops, you know, you're going to need a third music. So.
Yeah. Okay, were there any more questions about the training portion of it? Right. Okay. So going after the practical training, so that was all the computer stuff. Here's the practical training in your pharmacy. So what we did is we developed a checklist of what is required by the Pharmacy Examining Board, and then what you are able to edit yourself. So we threw out a few ideas, and then this will be a Word document, so you can edit it however you want. But it's including, so the idea we set up here is that each technician will have their own sheet, and then as you go through, you sign it saying, yes, I'm competent in the skill, both the technician and the pharmacist. Sign it, date it, add comments. So there's a blown up copy here. That's just the first page on the slide.
For both this and the, I think I know the answer to this question, but I just want to make sure I'm right. So for this and the validation log or the error catching log, that can be any pharmacist signing off on it, or does it have to be the supervising pharmacist?
Any pharmacist can do these. The supervising pharmacist is considered the person who oversees it and is, or responsible for those outcomes and the accuracy of the documents. But yeah, it'd be really hard to have one trying to manage all of this at once. Okay, going on. So this is reporting quality assurance. This is that 5% check every day. And then record keeping and reporting. So as we were talking about just a minute ago, once a validated pharmacy technician completes all the training and the initial validation, then they just do check every day. And then they just have to maintain that 99.8% accuracy over 12 months audited quarterly. And that's checking 5% of the final check they complete each day. So just to clarify, if you have two validated pharmacy technicians checking at the same time, you have to do 5% for each one. So if one does 120 and one does 80, you have to do 5% of each of those. But as I said, if you just say, well, what's 5% of that total number, and I'll just do that for each of them, you are always going to make your 5%.
When you say quarterly, what does that mean? Like, you just audit them for that month, or you go back to the previous quarter, or?
Yeah, so you look back at the past year. So here's our log. It looks like the initial validation log. So you look at whether you record it, you just keep one log for them, or you do a monthly log or a weekly log, that's up to you.
Okay.
But you just have to look back to the past 12 months, and then each quarter.
Okay.
Every 3 months, you look back a year.
Each quarter, a few months will fall off, and you'll look.
And yeah, new ones will replace it.
Okay.
So then initially, before we get up to 12 months, if they're below that accuracy rate, do we wait until 12 months to fully assess that? Or is it after quarter one, when we start the program, if you're at 96.7, you have to go back through validation? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I believe it's starting quarter one will be that first 3 months here, and then after that. But then once we hit that year mark, then it'll just be the previous 12 months.
Perfect. Okay.
So, and then just to go back, if someone doesn't meet that 99.8%, they just go back through the revalidation process. And then if you so choose to go through additional training, that's up to you.
And this is just restating, I think, what has already been said, or stating the obvious. We've gotten this question a number of times, so I want to clarify. So it's definitely not that of the audited doses that day, if they're below 99.8%, you not have to go through the revalidation. It's just, we want to look at a longer span of time than that, so not on a day-to-day basis. that will be something based on the feedback that we've received from Iowa that we probably need to reiterate with especially with your technician staff, because they'll assume that they need to be 99.8% every day, all the time. So making sure that you're educating them, and we'll work on this, but educating them that it's not that accuracy that day, it's over a span of time.
However, you'd hope they're still up there.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So then going on to what is required to be reported and recorded, kept in your records. So the Pharmacy Examining Board asks for policies, procedures, and training materials all be kept on record for 5 years, and that they're made available to the Pharmacy Examining Board upon request if need be. So that includes initial validation logs, the revalidation log if that person doesn't meet their 99.8% in the quality assurance process, and then also quality assurance logs. And then on an annual basis, data is reported to the Pharmacy Examining Board. And that is, it's just simple, just a few items here. So it's probably going to be like a one-sheeter about the total number of final checks, the total number of final checks audited by a pharmacist, then the total number of errors identified by a pharmacist during those final checks that were wrong drug, wrong dose, or wrong dosage form, and then the total number of hours that pharmacists reallocated towards other patient care activities, and a description of those activities. So that is aggregate data for the entire pharmacy. It's not, you don't have to do that for every single person participating. It's just all together, and that's just on one annual basis. And so the form is created by the Pharmacy Examining Board. So that'll also be in that packet of materials that we send you, and it'll also be available on the Pharmacy Examining Board's website once they finalize that information sheet in that application form.
So for the first bullet of policies and procedures, are there blanket policies and procedures that we have for this, like for the pilot program that's referring to, or are those specific policies and procedures around tech that we'll be developing as part of the initial go live?
Yeah, so they're specific to tech. So what we did is we developed a draft or a template that has the minimum requirements by the Pharmacy Examining Board, and then you can edit it however you'd like to fit your site. But that'll be included in the packet of materials. So we're creating a toolkit to make it just simple to follow through. It's pretty concise and easy to follow. Okay. So just kind of a quick breeze through on this as you go forward and talk to your sites about new opportunity is a practice change. So I took this from WPCC, so here's the expert here, Sophia. I just included an article that is in the training. I think it just kind of encompasses all the ideas and ways to approach one of these changes. I took out a few highlights from it and added them into the slides. So just that, why would you want to do TCT? It expands direct patient care services to improve patient outcomes. That's the main goal here. And then it enhances a patient's experience and kind of raises pharmacy's position in the healthcare world. Likely that is going to make a big effect because pharmacists have such a high, or patients have a high level of trust with their pharmacists, and are more likely to go to pharmacy than their physician. This also is towards a broader goal of advancing technician roles. About you're making technicians have greater skill sets, and so you're creating these advanced roles and longer term, bigger goals. That is just one part of it. And then there's a positive return on investment if you can offer more services here. And then everyone can just feel good about it. We're helping people out by doing this. It's just another way to provide more services. So tools to create a service-centered program takes leadership and inspiration. Just creating that goal here, which is TCT, is to provide more patient care services. And then communicating that goal to all the staff through just conversations, role modeling, and storytelling. Takes management, which is the information, defining the roles in the workflow, making it just clear and concise, and then reinforcing why we're doing it to create patient care services. And then just accountability, and that's that quality assurance measure that there is a requirement to do it well. And then just strategies to motivate and encourage staff. So just communicating those expectations, which are those goals that we've set, and communicating with the whole staff again, allowing time for questions and answers and addressing concerns with them. And if there's a question that you can't answer, you can always send me an email, call me, ask me to come and explain something. I'm happy to do so. Just educating and training, so that's part of the toolkit and the materials we developed here. So it makes it easy to do tech, check, tech. And then setting accountability standards for performance, so that's quality assurance, setting a schedule so people know if they're doing tech, check, tech, and then just rewarding and recognizing. That is what I have there. Is there any questions before I hand it off?
I want to highlight a couple of pitfalls that we're acutely aware of that had occurred in Iowa, just so that you can work to try and mitigate them as you move into this phase of informing your teams and getting buy-in, et cetera. And we can elaborate on any of these, but the feeling of pharmacists wanting to hold on to product verification is a really emotional piece of what we do as pharmacists at the front lines in a community pharmacy. So Iowa reported that the person in Erica's role mentioned that that was a big struggle through the implementation process and getting buy-in from staff. So thinking about how you want to approach kind of knowing the dynamics of your teams at each of the locations and who you want to put in charge and how you want to instruct them to inform their teams. That sort of pharmacist hanging on to the product verification piece is something that will be a challenge that you'll just need to mitigate and address. And then the technician side, I think the biggest thing I heard, I don't know if you would agree, Erica, is the feeling of being asked to do one more thing and also kind of not understanding how this fits into the bigger piece of what's happening within the pharmacy. So making sure that they're feeling empowered by this is an opportunity, et cetera. Those were like the pharmacist #1 challenge that IPA experienced, and the technician #1 challenge that IPA experienced with the initial implementation phase.
Well, nothing else, you can hand off to Victoria, and then maybe you'll have time for some discussion then at the end here. We're a little ahead of schedule, which is great. I know, I looked at it. Really? Okay. Hi, I'm Victoria, and the research team has 3 members from Concordia. We have Scott, Cordesky here, and he's in charge of informatics and actually data collection in the study. And we all work together, but we all have specialties. And Christian, who's on the line, Christian Albano, he is going to be primarily responsible for the analysis, and then myself, I am the coordinator of the research. Oh, I turned it off. Oh, the battery, that's it. Jeez. Okay. All right. So what is the goal of this? And Erica has did a great job going over this. And I do want to thank Erica. You've been just so wonderful to work with. We've worked together for a couple months. But the goal of this pilot is to actually implement the tech. And we're looking for 15 to 20 independent chain or health system community pharmacies across the state of Wisconsin. And the goal of this study is actually to assess the impact of the tech on patient safety measures, and we're going to be doing that by measuring the validation or the validate technician, what their accuracy rates are, but then also comparing what is the error rates of a validated technician to a pharmacist. And then our second goal is to assess the impact on the study. How much more time can pharmacists time be spent on allocation to other duties, specifically patient care duties like giving vaccines or MPM services, those kinds of things. So I do want to make it clear that this study is not actually having part of the validation process of your technicians. We're not collecting data or anything on that. So in fact, you're getting ready now to get started. Okay, because as Scott mentioned, there's several moving parts to this.
So Erica has already gone over the pharmacy eligibility, and it's basically the same as the pharmacy examining board. We decided to keep everything the same as much as possible to make things easy on people. So you have to be licensed and in good standing, and you have to be a WPQC accredited or be part of a federally listed patient safety organization. You have to seek approval from the pharmacy examining board, and you have to be willing to participate in this research study. It doesn't mean that you're actually going to be picked, but you have to be willing to participate. As Erica said, include the show and tell. You have to have a continuous quality assurance program to identify and evaluate related events, to make sure that you're continuously making sure that patient outcomes are safe. And the supervising pharmacist to oversee the TCT program. It does not have to be the managing pharmacist, but you have to have someone who is responsible. And of course, that you have to be able to comply with all of the training, validation, and documentation, and comply with the research deliverables. So the pilot study, as we decided to do, to keep things essentially the same as from the pharmacy examining board. And that's because we wanted to mainstream the requirements, but also to make it easier on everybody, because you could see where there was a study and then you guys are having to do all this. You could see it can get kind of messy. And so, but also because we wanted to assess what the impact of the specific program, which is being approved from the pharmacy examining board. We want to be able to say what this program is actually doing. If we would have changed it too much, it would have been maybe comparing apples and oranges. So we want to keep it the same, basically make it as easy on everybody as possible and to assess the program. But the difference is that we do need to collect baseline data. And that's because we have to have a comparison before the study actually gets started. And so we're actually going to be collecting baseline data on pharmacist error rates, and also collect baseline data on the pharmacist allocation of duties. So we have a starting point before the TCT program even gets implemented, what error rates are and from pharmacists, and also what they're currently doing. So for baseline, if you want to look at, and I have it in your packet, and it is report a draft. And this here is just, again, they're drafts, and these are just paper items. We're going to be having a focus group after this of how to facilitate data collection to make it possible to get some suggestions from you. So to collect data on the pharmacist error rate for 15 consecutive days that TCT staff is available, so maybe that happens, because that could be 15 days in a row, but we do want it to be 15 consecutive days that the people who are going to be involved in this program are available. 50 prescriptions per day that is checked by a pharmacist, normal routine. It's either going to be double checked by another pharmacist or a validated technician. And we're going to be collecting data basically on the same thing that we did or for validated technicians. Wrong dose, wrong strength, wrong formulation, or wrong quantity.
Would the validated technician checking baseline data be if you had like one location up and going and you're trying to get the second location up and going, if you won't have anyone validated?
Well, it's primarily meant in cases where if you only have one pharmacist working, then if there's only one pharmacist, there can't be another pharmacist to check that pharmacist. So we went with saying that initially when we were doing the study, that had to be 2 pharmacists that were available at all times, and we went back to that is a validated technician can check the pharmacist's work.
Because at baseline there won't be.
Oh, I'm sorry. It should be a field check. Not okay.
Right, but as far as that second check goes, there won't be any validated technicians until after the study.
Well, again, this is how if it's wants to be incorporated in at the time there's validated, if you're doing everything at the same time. I'm not saying it has to be done before or after, but we do want to actually collect this.
Okay.
So if pharmacies want to do all training and everything together, that's fine. Since you get a validate technician, do this. Or in cases where pharmacies have 2 pharmacists right away, they can pretty much do it, or pharmacists anytime, they can do it anytime.
Yeah, I think it's more of an exception if there's, so we can include, make it open to more people, but it's the ideal situation to have another validated technician doing the file checks.
Okay.
But yeah, that person has to go through all the training and, you know, validation process, and then you do baseline, which,
Right.
Yeah, it's almost a little bit backwards, so doing them
It is.
time. Yeah.
I mean, ideally we wanted to have 2 pharmacists, but then I don't know who is actually going to be applying to be in the study, and we didn't want to exclude any community pharmacies that only had 1 pharmacist who wanted to participate.
So it's not really linear. Baseline doesn't necessarily mean for
No.
the validation.
But
Yeah.
it's got it. No.
Okay.
But that person probably, correct me if I'm wrong, then the validated pharmacy technician shouldn't actually be doing tech until baseline.
Correct. They really shouldn't be, but so you should be collecting the baseline first before the validated tech, before you're doing it.
They could get validated and then kind of go backwards to collect baseline and then start the implementation of the tech check.
Yep.
Where does 15 days come from?
It actually came from, initially we wanted 15 work days, Monday through Friday, for 3 weeks. And we thought that 2 weeks was just a little, you know, iffy because people's, you know, scheduling and changes. And so what we decided to do was go with 15 straight days, a half a month. So we probably could have done 14 days, 2 weeks, but people aren't going to necessarily start on a Sunday to a Saturday. They're going to start on any day. So we thought half a month, 15 consecutive days. And we also worked closely with Iowa on this, and they collected baseline data for 15 days. And ideally, this study is much different than Iowa's, significantly different. But to the extent that we're able to use the same data, we would like to, because the more aggregate data that you can show on something, and Iowa did have positive results, so we would like to make it as similar as possible in the steps that we were able to do.
Sure. Yeah, I think the balance is that pharmacists are expensive, so like the whole intent of part of the project is to advance the role of pharmacists and get them out of that, and so.
Right.
I was just curious if there's any balance between the number of days that we're capturing the data, if there's like a certain power that we're looking for to hit study metrics that 15 sticks out, or if it's just to mimic the Iowa study. I think we can make it work either way, but it's just a significant, because when we're checking the technician accuracy, the pharmacist that's staffing already, this is throwing a second pharmacist to some degree into that role.
And Christian, I'm not talking to Christian, I'm just saying your name. He had actually did a power calculation. He's really the analysis in here. And to actually determine a difference between a technician and a pharmacist based on the number of prescriptions and how many days, this was the power calculation that we actually needed to have in order to do that.
How many doses is it each, or not doses, but how many prescriptions? So 50 prescriptions?
It's 50 prescriptions a day for 15 days.
So theoretically, could you have a pharmacist just doing double checks for part of the day, like to comment, like for example, like in the situation where we've got Lauren at Aurora, you could theoretically go to the site, do the checks for those 50 prescriptions over a period of a couple hours or whatever at the end of the day or part of a day, thinking that would be another strategy to try and not have double staffing for over all those 3 weeks.
Or could it be 100 prescriptions over, like is there a certain number that we're trying to reach for the power, or does it have to be over a certain period of days?
We would like it to be 15 consecutive days because what happens is if you're checking like all the prescriptions, like if you getting it done in 2 or 3 days, that from a research perspective, that's not the best. It's actually having a consecutive days as far as on the days that the tech check staff are available. So if you were to have a substitute pharmacist to fill in, you may not, probably wouldn't do that day.
And then I guess my other question is to make the cohort between pharmacists and technicians similar. Would we only be checking errors on the same prescriptions that are eligible for tech? So would we be excluding compounds and other, like the mailed or delivered medications from this group too?
No, I didn't really answer if it was the exclude. I just basically left it as 50 prescriptions.
Okay.
I don't think
I'm looking for, I'm looking for
just
pharmacist error rate, and I don't think it's realistic to do those prescriptions from a pharmacist. I kept it as just 50 prescriptions, whatever they are.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure.
for sure you wouldn't want to exclude mailed and delivered. You want to, I mean, it's just, again,
The ones that are there is fine.
Right. Was that something that we had to do for the PEB? It just feels like there's been so much research done on this over quite a number of years that
the baseline accuracy.
And it's been statistically insignificant, and I mean, it's some kind of, was that something that we just were required to do?
Well, I mean, this program was approved by the pharmacy examining board, and so from that standpoint, and actually we talked about this when we changed it from Iowa. From a researcher standpoint, and I am a pharmacist, so I do understand how hard it is to work. And I've been a pharmacist for over 20 years, so I do get it. That it's so much to think that I'm.
No, I understand. I was just trying to understand if that was included.
We wanted to have the strongest data to show that this is what a technician is doing, and this is the pharmacist. We really want, and I mean, our goal is hopefully we show that this program is successful. And by having that piece of data in there, it just adds to it.
I think adding on that, there's not a lot of research on community settings. There's a lot of research on the inpatient setting. So since this is the only second state to do it, I think there's some push to get some, study analysis behind it to say, yes, this is a good thing for pharmacy overall in the community setting. But we just don't have enough of that. And when I say we, I mean like nationwide, there isn't enough.
I mean, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
It just seems like, man, it's been studied.
Yeah.
You're just saying pharmacists are technicians at least comparable to a pharmacist.
Right.
I know.
Or in most, I think in almost all the studies, the technicians have been better. And I can't imagine how many studies have already been done for that comparison.
So I would just say that the study component as a whole, like the whole study, the reason we're doing a study, the reason we approached the Pharmacy Examining Board about doing a study is it's actually a requirement of our participation in the grant with NACDS is to do a study. And they outlined 2 specific aims that we need to study. Those are requirements for our agreement with NACDS to provide project support. So we then brought Concordia's research team in as our partner, and those aims, one of the aims is measuring patient safety, essentially. So this is how we're meeting that aim, is comparing baseline data with validated pharmacy technician data. And then the other aim is how that time is redeployed, or is time redeployed on patient care services. So those are the 2 requirements that we have. So I guess if your feeling is that the baseline is going to cause a huge disruption, as it's outlined, I think we need to look at that and reassess that and what's reasonable.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, so the 2 pharmacies that we're looking at are not terribly high volume pharmacies. So this is going to add, in my opinion, for the 2 pharmacies that we're looking at, an extra month. Because really, the goal is, I guess, to have our validated text by the end of the year.
but once we have the validated text, if that's the person we're going to use now for this, now we have January to do that.
Yeah.
So just timeline-wise, it feels like it adds, and so we don't get to the meat of the project of, okay, the validated text is checking, and now the pharmacist has time to do something else until February or even later.
Is the sites that you're considering, is there more than one pharmacist there for a period of time during the day? Or is it usually just staffed by one?
There is, but that's because of the workload.
Okay.
So now we've introduced another piece of workload to the existing workload.
Yep.
But for me, it just feels like, I mean, for lack of a better word, it's just busy work.
Yep.
I think you brought up a good point about the timeline, though, and I was going to mention this about the general timeline of the project. Other pharmacies are similar to ours. December and January are the busiest months out of the year, so we usually freeze any type of implementation. And if we're shooting on, by January having the technicians validated, that means that this piece is happening upstream of that, and we have schedules developed already for pharmacists. So it's really trying to move some pieces around, which I'm sure we could do, but once again, we usually saturate the pharmacies with staff during those months just because of the time of the year. So
this is a good time to do, so knowing that, is it a better, as we can take this conversation offline a little bit too, but is it a better time to do, if there's volume is higher, is it a better time to try and do some additional checks, or is that just create too much? That's our concern too, with the month that this is falling into. I mean, this is obviously not what we set out to have as our timeline. So we really want to make sure that this works and that we're not trying to do something that's too challenging in terms of timeline. The other piece that I'm acutely aware of is the implementation of the EPDMP is happening in January. Why they selected January for implementation is pretty frustrating. But that will also be hitting sites in addition to everything else that happens in January. So workflow-wise, that's a challenge.
I mean, it's all going to be a balance of, obviously we want to get it started sooner rather than later, and we want to collect as much data as possible, but I think those are some considerations to take into account. Like I said, we can make it work. It's just a lot of extra time that we're throwing a pharmacist into the mix for the study, and so just making sure that we feel comfortable that whatever we collect is going to provide the information that we need to get to the accuracy evaluation. I think is just important because once again, if we can do it in 5 less days and still demonstrate that it's worthwhile, that's going to save me a lot of time for pharmacists during the busy months of the year.
Yeah, or if we can do, like you said, even the 5 less days, but also bring in all of the other research that has been done on just the accuracy between the pharmacist and technician, if that helps our case, some of our own practical data collection, but also all the past history collection. Maybe that's the compromise.
Can I make note, and I can talk to Christian? I mean, I just want to make sure I don't have a problem with cutting down the days. I just want to make sure that it's going to be useful data and talking.
Yeah, you don't want to.
I mean, why collect it for 10 days and that doesn't make sense?
Okay.
So
my suspicion is that 10 days is reasonable because we're trying to get away from some sort of cherry picking, some sort of we didn't basically take a sample, we took just one specific thing. So we're trying to get away from that. And then the idea, I mean, the number is 750. Yeah, I mean, that's 750, start doing the math out.
We need 750 doses, but we need it
over
a period of time.
And we want to stretch it out so there's no, so again, it's study design.
Yep, understood.
So you're correct in pushing on this, and it does make sense, absolutely. I definitely have looked at some of the stats you're referring to, and I definitely hear you, but I don't want to give up as a case control. Right? So if we run into, everything will go perfect. But if we run into a problem and I'm not looking at a case control solution,
yeah,
just
I agree. I understand.
Where busy work drives me nuts because I've been in that situation where you feel like you're doing busy work, and that certainly isn't where we want you to be.
Yeah, and I think more so if I can articulate, at least from, you know, in my verbiage, okay, this is why it is this way, that it's in order to get enough doses or the variation in days and make it statistically significant, that's why it is this way, then it doesn't feel like busy work as much.
Right, and at the end of the day, case control, if we go to something else, we're giving that up. And I think we all would agree we do not want to give that up.
Agreed.
So that's why, right off the bat, it's not busy work. Now, the exact layout is us trying to defray any possible, oh no, you people cherry picked, you did that, you know, it is front-running concerns that would come later, which would be valid. So that's where we're headed with that.
I just think my one concern with if we change anything is the PEB had to approve this study, and the way they approved it was 50 prescriptions for 15 days. We would have to go back to the PEB and get the study reapproved, which would push our timeline back. Their next meeting's November 3rd. It's too late to get this on that agenda. They have a limit, so we wouldn't be able to go back to the PEB till January, and that just pushes this back more and more. That's just
No matter what, we can do it.
I know, and I understand your concerns. I'm just saying that pushes our timeline back even further.
But we could adjust
But we could.
the timeline of when this occurs. So maybe, I think, Joe, you were kind of saying, you know, that this adds a month in your mind in terms of how quickly this could be implemented, or so theoretically we could say, well, then we're going to start February, you know. So we have that flexibility. Wouldn't have to wait on pharmacy examining board approval.
Well, and again, not to cherry pick or whatever, but this does not specify, I just want to make sure, between a new prescription or a refill, correct? So like it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
If it's 50 new prescriptions versus 50 refills.
Right.
I mean, obviously you want to mix, but just because that would certainly, if you have a decent mix of including some refills, that certainly helps speed it up a little bit.
Do we? I know this has fluctuated a little bit since we had initial discussions. Do we know how many sites are involved now that are going to be part of the medical study? Either sites or health systems, or?
Yeah, we're aiming for 15 to 20. I don't have a specific number off the top of my head of what health systems.
Well, and it's changing day to day.
Yeah, people seem to be, there's just a lot of action right now between the PDMP and then new computer systems or adding new pharmacy. So it does change quite a bit. We're right around 15 right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we have interest. It's just a matter of if the time works for other people. It's kind of been the change.
So from a logistics standpoint, that is something we also need to try and work through on our end.
Do you need, like, could we, if we get another one, would that help you?
Yeah, there's that potential. I mean, we've learned.
Lauren,
We've learned some volunteer, Lauren. We've learned some things from sites that we thought were for sure participating. Like, for example, Gunderson. They've been at the table and been interested in participating since the beginning, but they're implementing a new computer system and acquiring a bunch of locations right at this particular juncture. So they're not able to start in the time frame that we had, what we have outlined. So they're holding back for now. So that's just an example of a couple of the interactions that we've had of late. So there is a potential that we would be able to allow your site to have another location. And there's also potential that we'll reach out to some people fresh. But I'm also thinking that we were really trying to avoid like any staggering of start times by like a significant period of time. But we're just going to have to like sort through all of this new development. So it's not end of world if we need to delay a month. We need to circle NACDS back a little bit and figure out how we're going to do all that. But there's some moving parts here is what I guess I'm trying to say, that we don't have all of that timeline exactly sorted out.
All of these data collection sheets are going to be electronic, right?
Mm-hmm. The reason I asked was, I was thinking if the number was smaller, there may be some feasibility from a study perspective to look at, I don't want to throw the residents into it because that isn't too large now, like too small, or like, wouldn't it be more beneficial for the study to avoid cherry picking and bias to have project investigators, like a core group of project investigators doing that double check versus, hey, buddy pharmacist, if you find any errors, don't knock it for them. I mean, there's more danger in that to me than cherry picking a specific date or time. We did a similar study, and pharmacists become pretty numb pretty quickly to the fact that somebody is double checking their work. You'd be surprised. But it's just, it was something I was trying to think about, like logistically, if there's a way to tie that in, because honestly, I'll probably turn to a resident to do some of this verification, but not all sites will have that. But it's also a hefty time requirement for residents. But I think if there's going to be a way to
We do have this practice advancement leadership team group of residents that their focus this year is on technicians, and Erica's been working really closely with the team that Dan Schenket is leading on the tech work, and there's an institutional component, there's a community component. So I could see potentially there being some resources there. We happen to have a meeting with that full group on Friday, and all the directors will be there. So that's something that we could potentially float up and see what interest there'd be. There has been some interest in that group doing some consulting services in the past, and this frankly would be a fantastic learning opportunity. So we could see, I mean, for them to be able to see sites, a variety of different sites, for them to be able to interact with some folks that are implementing this. So maybe there's a way to supplement what would need to occur at the sites. I'm not sure that we'd be able to have anybody
there
all the time.
Because to throw a resident off site for 15 days to do this, I think would be a little bit of a struggle. Once again, unless it was within their own health system they were working in.
Yeah.
So this past resident, I cringed a little bit when I said that. But I'm just thinking about ways.
How is the receptor? It's all great, right?
I think the kicker of that is that the group is made up of Lauren's in that group, so it's 2 people in Milwaukee and 2 people in Madison. So I think for sites that are outside of Madison, Milwaukee, it'd be kind of challenging for them to travel, an hour each way.
Well, Lauren's
go
not going anywhere.
We can toss that around a little bit and see how that might be leveraged for certain sites.
Well, this is a little off topic, but with the login for the training, are they like if they don't have if they're not registered through the PSW site, will this be a unique login because it's not open to how do they get their login essentially?
So you're registering for a meeting, that's why we set it up that way. So if you're not a member, if you are a member, you just log in as normal. But if you're not a member, then you just create a login.
Okay. Yep. But how will how will the meeting know that they're one of the people involved in the program and are allowed in?
Oh, it's open to anybody. Then it's just going to be the meeting's only distributed to the people within the study, but anyone can log into the meeting, if that makes sense. So basically, I'll send the link to all of you, and then you can send it to anyone you think wants to go through the training.
Okay.
It's sort of open.
Yeah.
Okay.
We want to try to limit it.
Yeah.
Our site.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Then this would be for each participating site as well, like the over 15 days, right? Just to clarify.
Yeah. For each site.
You call it.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but like for us, so in Aurora we have 70 pharmacies. We only have 2 participating.
Okay.
Could we do this process at a different pharmacy? Or does it need to be at the participating?
It's got to be participating.
Control, yeah, got it.
Sorry.
No, I figured I figured that was the answer, but.
And you alluded to this, but I mean, we do have, what'll make it more challenging is if we do, we have team-based approach to staffing, and so it may very well be that there's 4 pharmacists that flow through there, but maybe there's a 5th float that has to rotate through. So is it okay for them to be part of the error rate, or can it only be the 2 standard folks that are there?
It should be ideally pharmacists that are participating in this program.
What does that mean?
Okay, well, I'm going to jump a couple slides ahead. Because this will be an IRB approved study as well. I'm hoping to get IRB approval. I was hoping to my phone and get it today. But people have to sign consent. So as a study, a research group, we don't have any control or say that, like, let's say if your pharmacy in the Shopco on Monona Drive, that they're going to participate in that. You get approved from the pharmacy examining board. You can have your pilot program there. However, that doesn't mean that an individual pharmacist has to participate in this data collection and have it included in being submitted to us. So if you have a pharmacist that does not want to be included in this actual study, even though we're emulating what the pharmacy examining board is, then that person should not be included in this because they have to sign a consent form. But on the consent form, I've made it very clear to the participants that whether the pharmacy does the tech program is actually independent of if individual participants want to have their data included in it. But the caveat is that for pharmacy to be approved, they have to be willing to participate, but it is voluntary. It's for individual pharmacists. So if you have a pharmacist that does not want to do the study, but those students do the tech, then you cannot use them for this.
So would the corollary also work? We were just talking about, say, residents.
Mm-hmm.
So during this time period, that resident now is also part of that pharmacy. Or say I might be part of my colleague's pharmacy during this time period, so I could participate in the study.
As long as you sign a consent form and you're approved to do it.
So I guess that's the question, does the pharmacist that's doing the double check, do they have to consent? If they're not, if their prescriptions aren't being evaluated, if they're the evaluator?
Their data and submitting it to us. Now this, the baseline is different. The pharmacy examining board, they've approved our program, but for like your data collection, when you submit it yearly, they're not requiring this. But they've approved our program, and they've approved this. But if somebody does not want their activities included in this study, then you cannot use them.
I guess what I'm asking is if I'm more of like the project investigator role where like maybe I don't staff at that pharmacy, maybe this is what you were getting at, but I'm going to go there because we need to collect this data and I'm going to double check the pharmacist. Do I have to consent to be involved, or as
it seems like anybody whose initials are on here?
You do need to consent if that pharmacy is going to send this data to Scott.
So then, practically how this would work is I would look at anybody who's going to be scheduled there, and I have to individually consent each one of them, right?
Each person in the pharmacy who's going to participate for our study data has to sign a consent form. You, as a pharmacy manager, have the right, if you get pharmacy approval from the pharmacy examining board, to run your program, but you may not be able to submit the data that's being collected to us. Now, you still have to collect your own data that you're going to have to submit to the pharmacy examining board, but submitting data up would be from a voluntary consent.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I know, and that's what we try to make it. It's the same to make it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I understand what.
It's very confusing.
Like, what we're going to have to do as an institution for, like, including pharmacists in the trial, or like anybody who's going to be involved in data collection, reporting.
Practically, to make this the easiest as possible, anybody who's working in that site during time VPT is or tech is occurring should consent.
And just to kind of, if some people have concerns, all of this is going to be de-identified. And these forms that we have attached here that say draft for collection of data, no one will see those. Those are yours. you submit all the information on Qualtrics, which Victoria hasn't got to yet, but no one's going to see who it shows like. It makes it a little easier for people who are like, I don't want to sign a consent form. So we'll let you get to the meat. Part of the reason that the study is designing it, so then all you have to do is transfer. If you get everyone on board, all you have to do is transfer that information to your annual sheet for the pharmacy examining board. So if you're lucky enough to get everybody on board, then it's going to be super easy for you come that annual reporting day.
Right. Does the consent form include organ donation?
Yeah. Right.
So, okay, so moving ahead, so we need to collect baseline data. So, okay, I got to see where I am. So, okay, we've gone over pharmacist error rate. So, the second part, which is pharmacy examining work is requiring, is how does this program actually affect the allocation of pharmacist duties? So, the second half for baseline is, and we're hoping it's the same 15 days because we want to make things easy, but if it's not, so be it. The same 15 days is actually a baseline data on how pharmacists are spending their time. And that's actually in report B draft. And specifically, it's broken down into dispensing, management, direct patient care services, and others. And I have it outlined what dispensing activities, patient care, and other are, but specifically the pharmacy examining board is looking at what impact this program has on direct patient care. How much time a pharmacist has spent doing either increased counseling or DUR, drug information requests, those types of things. So for direct patient care services, that's actually even broken down more specific. And so on the next page, I have it outlined. I'm sorry, I omitted the B on the second page. And so direct patient care service, that's really what the pharmacy examining board is looking for. It's really how much time. So the only way we can measure what the impact of this program has is to collect baseline data. Otherwise, you can't say what you had time to do before the program.
Is this filled out by the pharmacist based on estimates?
Estimates of, I put 15 minutes, rounded to the nearest 15 minutes. So 1.24, 1.5, minute by minute.
I think that's part of the feedback we want today too. If these forms seem the easiest way to do it for you, if there's an easier way that we can develop to report all this data.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know when I was a pharmacist and I had to collect data on error rates and those types of things, I had on a daily basis a clipboard. And then I just would make check marks on like a paper sheet. And then at the end of the day or weekly, whatever I did, I actually then would enter it that way. But for me, I always thought helpful to have just a clipboard with and collect it on paper first, because you don't have access to a computer unless you can remember. What we're going to be talking about in our focus group is how often this data is collected. We want to make it easy for you guys, whether you think of doing it, daily, weekly, monthly. We want it obviously at least monthly. And of course, for 15 days, we would like that whenever you get your 15 days collected. So,
potentially every day of one.
Well, Scott, I'm going to have Scott actually address this. He's putting you on. So, as far as, I mean, once the fall truck is up, whether it gets delivered, we do not want to overwhelm people, and filling out a survey every day, I think, is one more thing that you guys don't want to do. But again, it's up to you. So my concern with doing it monthly is that, especially for pharmacists who decide to keep it on a paper form, they're tallying it up. I mean, I wouldn't want to go through a month doing all that collection. So whether independently you wanted to do it on an Excel sheet, or Scott can help you with developing an Excel sheet, whatever is easiest for you to do this data. Because, so this for 15 14 days, that's what we're looking for. And then moving on, I called it,
They're not connecting.
Okay, thanks. There you go. So for the maintenance phase, the maintenance phase does essentially emulate the pharmacy examining board. And so what we're going to be collecting data on is the number of prescriptions that were checked by the verified pharmacy technician. And you can see what we're going to be collecting data on: the number of prescriptions checked by the verified technician, the ones that were rechecked by pharmacists, and then the number of errors. What we're also asking for, but we understand that people are concerned with confidentiality, is how many prescriptions you actually filled on that day. And that's actually report C. And that's, again, this is just a draft. This is a paper. It will be Qualtrics. And then for the allocation of time, that's exactly the same as what was in the baseline, exactly the same. So the difference is at baseline, we're collecting pharmacist error rate, allocation of time, and then in the maintenance, we're actually looking at the validated technician and the allocation time. And those are where the comparisons are going to be.
Is the allocation of time and the maintenance phase intended to be daily or at certain checkpoints?
We have it daily, and we have to have it daily for a while. And then so I actually put here, it may decrease, especially as we see, we're able to identify trends or seeing how it's going. I cannot actually say what that time will be. I'll be working with Christian and Scott, and of course, on that. We do have it as daily collection. This is a potential change of practice model of pharmacy. So we need to make sure that we have enough data to actually show what we're trying to show. Yeah.
On the draft of the pilot program where it goes into more detail about the specific direct patient care services, for the MTM services, is that simply the face-to-face time with the patient, or is the documentation time also included in that?
Well, I mean, I would consider that like with medication reconciliation, that's not actually part of, if you don't do that face-to-face. I consider any type of MTM services that you're doing. Now, keep in mind, this isn't all inclusive. This is just the majority. And what we're also collecting here, in very much, I've adjusted it on some ways, but looks like Iowa for what they collected. Ideally, we want to have as much aggregate data as possible. And if you show that two states are similar or have similar results, that just expands things easier across the country, and you have a much stronger case to actually, when this goes into making rules and regulations, you just have a stronger case instead of saying that it's 15 or 20 pharmacists in Wisconsin.
Victoria, how often did the Drake project in Iowa, how often did they have the pharmacists collect?
That I do not know. But I'm Christian, and we want to do it daily for a while. Now, whether it's a month or 2 months, we're looking for, I would say, for approximately 2 months we want to have daily. And the reason is that pharmacy, your duties change. Like, so for example, when it's flu season, community pharmacists maybe just want giving vaccines, or maybe they don't have time to give vaccines, depending. So we want to be able to account for seasonal issues, high vacation times. We want to be able to account for all those types of things. So we're looking for anywhere from 1 to 3 months. Might be a month, but I definitely for sure for 1 month.
There be some value to maybe prolonging the daily collections until later, because initially it's going to be all about making it work within your workflow, and those maybe patient care services aren't going to happen until later. So if you're reporting that later on, it's going to look like there was less services provided than there actually were, because upfront there probably won't be as many.
You're right, but as Christian, who is an expert in analysis, he will see, that's what he's going to actually see, is trends. What you actually hopefully want to see is a trend, not just that now you're here. You want to say that at the beginning, in this first quarter, because we're going to be writing quarterly reports, you want to be able to say, in this quarter, we saw this, this, and this, and then now moving forward, because it's expected that as this moves forward, that it's going to get easier. Pharmacists are going to have more time. You're going to get more comfortable with your staff. They're going to feel better about it. And there's no doubt about it that the first probably month is not going to be very fun for pharmacists. There's no doubt about that. But the goal is to move forward. And so the concern, Erica, that I have with waiting to collect data later, you're not going to have actually that initial point.
I agree. I'm saying you still collect data, but maybe not as frequently, while there's so many other moving pieces that you could submit the data maybe, or write it down earlier on. Or I guess, are you saying you just have to record it daily and then transfer it?
Right. We're not asking you to submit it to us. That's what we're trying to collect data for you. We want to get that from you guys. We want it at least monthly, but that's why I had using a paper while you're on a clipboard throughout your day, and then whether once you want to do it yourself or just keep a running tally and submit it to us once a month or once a week, whatever works for you.
So when we're in the maintenance phase, let's say we're doing check, maybe just from, say, 1 to 5. We still would collect this information for the full day. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. You want to collect
not just during the hours that somebody's doing.
But you want to do it. You want to do it on the days that the people again who are participating in our study. So if you have pharmacists that's not doing it, then I'm going to actually retract. I'm going to retract on if you're doing it for 5 hours. Let me ask Christian on that. I would think you would only want to do the data collection for 5 hours. Unless it makes it different.
But I see there are times when you're going to have the tech doing it, and that gives you time to maybe the next morning.
Right.
Because
I would do it all day for the entire day.
I thought about it myself, and then I thought, well.
No, that's how I have it. Like for the entire day, because I agree, if technicians filling more things, that gives you time to do other things. You may be able to allocate time that next day to doing immunizations.
Right.
Yeah.
With report B, I guess I'm just wondering, it looks like this was adapted from Iowa's study. Like, did they find utility and because this is going to be perceived pharmacist, because like this is going to be the end of the day, the pharmacist looking back basically and saying this is how much time I think I spent doing these roles, right?
And it is, but that's why I actually recommend having a clipboard, and you could kind of like maybe doing it hourly, and that's one of the things.
I think the struggle with like tallying something is just because I checked that prescription or I did this doesn't equate to time, and so I'm still going to be assuming I spent 4 hours doing direct patient care services.
And they are estimates, and one of the things with self-reporting is that you got to account in perceptions, and so when we do the write-ups on these, that's going to be one of the limitations. That because I'm not there actually timing and things like that.
I mean, one of the things that we've done in studies where we looked at the patient side, like how much time pharmacists, like when you're looking at allocation of time, it's more like random sampling. So like having pagers that go off at random points in time, and then at that point in time, I'm a pharmacist. I go, right now I'm doing patient care activities, and I make a tally there. And then over an extended period of time, which it sounds like this would be, you could capture rough percentage of how pharmacists spend their time. I feel like that would, like the struggle I have with this is if it's a daily perception, I could go back and look at like what did I put yesterday, and maybe I think I did a little bit more, a little bit less today, and it's just subjective. And so the subjectivity of it makes me question, is doing it daily going to provide value, or could a weekly report assist with like on average, over this, from like Monday through Friday, how much time did you feel you spent in these areas?
So are you talking about just collecting it once a week, or are you talking about submitting it, collecting or submitting?
I guess I'm torn. I don't know. I struggle with this format of like the self-documentation of perceived time. To me, just doesn't seem very, I don't know, robust. Like when we go back and look at it, I struggle with the applicability of like how usable that data is. So that's what I'm wondering is like having the pharmacist fill this out on a daily basis for 3 months going to demonstrate any change. But
we hope that it does. I mean, but
how much bias is incorporated into that?
Self-reporting is definitely, when you're talking about research, it is the lowest level of reliability and validity. It's the lowest level. But because we have 15 to 20 pharmacies, we're trying to collect data on a large number. We're trying to get as much data as we can.
Yeah, my comment really was similar to where we've done pager studies to assess, and then whenever the pager goes off, is when you check, okay, what were you doing at that moment in time? And I know we had statisticians involved with kind of how many times would you need to page and what kind of randomization would you need. I think, well, I mean, that's kind of up to you guys as researchers if that's something that
we're
give us
more
any
than
different
looking.
data.
It's certainly been something we have talked about a number of times, and
Yeah.
usually those conversations end up in, you know, some sort of a stalemate.
Yeah.
And almost every idea.
That may be a little bit more difficult with the pure retail settings where, like, in health system, a lot of us do have access to pagers, but I don't know how many of your shops so far this
Will it have to be
We
something
don't, but it's the way that our scheduling is set and responsibilities and assignments, it actually won't be very hard for us to do this.
It won't be?
No, I don't think it's very hard. It's going to be somewhat, it's an estimate is what it's going to be, but
Right,
I can look at a schedule and I
that's
can see that I got a pharmacist assigned to verify scripts for a 2-hour period. Well, it's pretty easy for me to say, okay, well, that's 25% of their day is in that.
You know, we're not looking for an exact science. We're looking for the best estimates that people can do with the best reasoning that they have.
Yeah, and I haven't completely supported that. I'm just asking questions.
No, I appreciate it.
Because once again, we're going to be the ones that are capturing all the data, and
Absolutely.
so investing the time to produce
Absolutely.
a result that's not.
No, I appreciate it.
Every present pharmacist that day, or just, you know, like if we have 2 pharmacists on a day, are both pharmacists needing to do this
Are they
for that day?
both going to be doing check?
Well, I'm assuming if they're present in the pharmacy where that's happening, then yes.
I think this all comes down to, like, did they sign the consent form again? So this is kind of getting everyone on board.
Right. You know, I think what I did is, as an airplane, we go to whatever pharmacist, and I would say it's the one who's most, you know, we don't want to overcomplicate this. Maybe it's the one who's the most directly involved. You have 2 pharmacists, and they both have signed the consent. Yeah, great. But it's like if you have one person that, you know, maybe that's their primary responsibility is check.
So if there's one person that's there all the time.
Yeah, I mean,
You just have to have
you're
those
going to have
goals.
people.
Because you could always be the person that's mainly doing dispensing activities.
Right.
And if the other person's doing
Because that's
direct
really,
taking care,
I guess
the
that's what I'm
whole
getting.
goal of this is to show the
Ultimately, the other pharmacist is probably the one who's going to be doing the expanded patient care, not necessarily me, but I'm the only one that's going to be there every day.
It's the one who is going to be most directly impacted by
Oh,
the
You'll be more than you'll say. I mean, every day you have 16 hours. Of that 16 hours, likewise, at the beginning of your study, most of it's going to be dispensing.
Right.
Hopefully, at the end
of the
study, that 16 hours, some of that will be more direct patient care.
Right. I mean, you're going to have pharmacists that are actually they're going to be helping out, or they're going to be working part of the shift, and they might it really, this isn't impacting their job that much, that you wouldn't want to put it on them.
Maybe what we'll do, just to kind of pen some of these discussions, we can have a little bit more dialogue about the study in a little bit, but I would say some really great questions have been raised and probably deserves maybe like an FAQ kind of document related to the study, and I'm gathering that there will be more people that will have those specific questions. So an FAQ kind of document, and that will also help us work through some of the unanswered questions. And then I think we can take back the feedback that you've provided. We can also talk with IO about the strategies they use, potentially even with like baseline data collection, like what worked well, what didn't work well. We can consider this issue of residents and circle back with you about how to help make that as successful as possible without having it be a big challenge. I think we want to make sure that this is exciting in implementation versus, Victoria, your comment of like it's going to be a pain. I think we want to try and.
I want to be exciting, sir, but and I got to be
right. But I think we want to minimize as much as possible the things that make this onerous and challenging, and try and have it be energetic and exciting, and have there be an understanding about why we're doing what we're doing. So we'll commit to circling back with you about that.
Yeah. Hey, off that, I don't know if this is a good point, then maybe everyone can grab some lunch. You know, I feel like we went over a lot of information, maybe taking a minute, let it all settle, and then we can, if you can all stick around, we can interview, kind of going over the study if everyone has time.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the report, it involves only those who are directly affected and have consented. So someone who is not really exactly going to say.
The caveat is, don't you have to be willing to consent, essentially, if you do check.
Your pharmacy does,
but not each individual pharmacist. Yeah, and that's required by the IRB. But, you know, I think everybody sees it as energetic.
We're good.